Jean Jacques Rousseau begins his philosophy with a bold and unsettling claim about human society. He believed that human beings are naturally good, yet society often corrupts them. According to this view, people are not born selfish, greedy, or cruel. Instead, they are born simple, compassionate, and capable of living peacefully. It is the structures of society, especially inequality, competition, and the desire for status, that slowly distort human character and create many of the conflicts seen in the world. To understand this idea, he asked people to imagine what human life might have been like before complex societies existed. Long before cities, governments, and institutions appeared, early humans lived in small groups and depended directly on nature for survival. In that natural condition, people did not compare themselves constantly with others, nor did they seek fame, power, or wealth. Their needs were simple. They looked for food, shelter, safety, and companionship. In this early condition, humans were guided mainly by two basic instincts. The first was self-preservation, the natural desire to survive and protect one's life. The second was compassion, a natural feeling of sympathy for the suffering of others. When someone saw another person in pain, they felt discomfort and were moved to help if possible. This simple combination of self-preservation and compassion allowed early humans to live without constant conflict. In such a natural condition, people were largely independent. They relied on their own abilities rather than competing for recognition or control over others. Because there were no complex systems of property or social ranking, there were fewer reasons for jealousy or rivalry. Life may have been difficult in terms of survival, but it was not filled with the social pressures and inequalities that later developed in organized societies. As time passed, however, humans began to form larger communities. Agriculture developed. People settled in permanent locations, and systems of ownership began to emerge. Land was divided and claimed by individuals or families. Once property existed, comparisons between people became more common. Some individuals possessed more land, more resources, or more influence than others. This moment marked a major turning point in human history. With the introduction of property came the beginnings of inequality. Some people accumulated wealth, while others had much less. Differences in status began to appear, and these differences created new emotions such as pride, envy, and resentment. Instead of simply trying to survive, individuals began competing with one another for recognition and power. He believed that this competition transformed human psychology. People no longer judged themselves by their own needs or abilities. Instead, they began measuring their worth by comparing themselves with others. A person might feel satisfied with what they have until they see someone who possesses more. This constant comparison creates anxiety and dissatisfaction, even when basic needs are already met. Because of this transformation, society gradually moved further away from the simplicity of the natural condition. Wealth and status became powerful motivations. Individuals began seeking admiration and approval from others rather than focusing on genuine well-being. The desire to appear superior often replaced the natural feelings of compassion and independence that once guided human behavior. He argued that many social institutions unintentionally reinforced these problems. Systems of power often protected the interests of those who already possessed wealth and influence. Laws sometimes preserved inequality rather than reducing it. Over time, these systems made the differences between rich and poor even greater. Despite this criticism of society, his philosophy does not suggest that humans should return to a primitive life in the wilderness. Instead, he wanted people to understand how social systems shape human behavior. By recognizing how inequality and competition distort human nature, societies can begin searching for better ways to organize themselves. Another important part of his philosophy concerns freedom. In the natural condition, humans were free because they depended mainly on themselves. They could act according to their needs without being controlled by complex institutions or powerful authorities. As societies developed, however, individuals often lost this direct form of freedom. They became subject to laws, economic pressures, and social expectations that limited their independence. This raises a difficult question. If humans naturally value freedom, how can they live together in organized societies without losing that freedom completely? A society without rules would quickly fall into chaos, yet strict control could destroy individual independence. Finding a balance between freedom and social order became one of the most important problems he tried to solve. Another issue he explored was the development of human identity. In the natural condition, people thought mostly about survival and basic needs. As society grew more complex, individuals began forming identities based on how others perceived them. Reputation, status, and public recognition became powerful influences on behavior. This change created new forms of pressure. Instead of simply living according to personal needs, people began shaping their behavior to gain approval from others. A person might work harder to appear successful, dress in certain ways to gain admiration, or hide their true feelings in order to maintain social acceptance. Over time, these pressures can lead individuals away from their authentic selves. For him, this loss of authenticity was one of the deepest problems created by modern society. When individuals become too focused on external approval, they lose touch with their natural feelings and genuine desires. Their actions become driven by social expectations rather than inner conviction. Despite these concerns, he believed that society could be reorganized in a way that protects both freedom and cooperation. Humans do not have to choose between complete independence and oppressive authority. With the right political structure, individuals can live together while still maintaining a meaningful form of freedom. The key to solving this problem lies in understanding how legitimate political authority should work. Governments should not exist simply to control people or protect the interests of a powerful minority. Instead, they should represent the collective will of the people and work for the benefit of the entire community. This idea became the starting point for one of the most influential political philosophies in modern history. It would eventually shape discussions about democracy, citizenship, equality, and the relationship between individuals and the state. Through these reflections, the foundation of his philosophy becomes clear. Human beings begin life with natural compassion and independence, but social structures can transform their behavior in both positive and negative ways. Understanding this transformation is the first step toward creating societies that protect freedom, reduce inequality, and allow individuals to live more authentic and meaningful lives. As these reflections continued, the central question became clearer. If human beings are naturally free and capable of compassion, how can they live together in organized societies without losing that freedom? Every society requires rules, laws, and cooperation. Yet these same structures can also create domination, inequality, and loss of independence. The challenge was to discover a form of social organization that protects freedom while still allowing people to live together peacefully. This question led to one of the most important ideas in his philosophy, the concept known as the social contract. The basic idea is simple but powerful. A legitimate society is formed when individuals agree to unite and create a political community that protects everyone while respecting their freedom. Instead of being ruled by force or by the interests of a small group, the community governs itself through the collective agreement of its members. In such a system, individuals give up a small portion of their natural independence in order to gain the protection and benefits of living in a stable society. When people live completely alone, they have total freedom but very little security. They must defend themselves, gather their own resources, and face dangers without assistance. By joining together in a community, individuals gain safety, cooperation, and shared resources. However, this exchange should not mean losing freedom entirely. The key idea is that the rules of society must come from the people themselves. If laws are created by a ruler or an elite group acting only for their own interests, the people are no longer truly free. They become subjects controlled by authority rather than citizens participating in their own government. To prevent this problem, he introduced the idea of the general will. The general will represent the shared interest of the entire community. It is not simply the opinion of the majority or the desire of the strongest group. Instead, it reflects what is best for the community as a whole when people think beyond their personal interests. Understanding this idea requires careful reflection. Each individual has personal desires and private interests. People may want wealth, comfort, or advantages that benefit themselves. But when citizens think about the common good of the entire society, they can recognize that certain principles benefit everyone. Safety, fairness, justice, and cooperation are examples of goals that serve the whole community rather than just a few individuals. The general will emerges when citizens focus on these shared interests. When laws reflect the general will, they aim to promote the well-being of all members of society. In this situation, individuals remain free because the laws they obey are laws they have helped create as members of the community. This idea leads to an important distinction between being forced by another person and being guided by laws created collectively. If a ruler imposes laws purely through power, the people obey out of fear or necessity. But when citizens participate in creating the rules that govern them, they remain part of the authority that establishes those rules. In this sense, freedom does not mean doing whatever one wants at every moment. True freedom means living under laws that protect the common good and that individuals accept as members of the community. By participating in the creation of these laws, citizens maintain a form of collective self-rule. Another important element of this philosophy is the idea of equality. A healthy society should not allow extreme differences in power or wealth that allow some individuals to dominate others. When inequalities become too large, the powerful can manipulate political systems to protect their own interests. This undermines the idea that laws should reflect the general will of the community. For this reason, he believed that political systems should prevent the concentration of power in the hands of a few individuals. Governments must be structured in ways that encourage participation and limit corruption. Citizens should remain actively involved in public life so that the political system continues to represent the interests of the whole population. Participation in civic life, therefore, becomes an important responsibility. Freedom in a political community does not simply mean enjoying rights without effort. It also involves taking part in discussions, decision-making, and the shaping of laws. When citizens withdraw from political participation, power can easily shift into the hands of those who seek to control it for personal advantage. Education also plays a crucial role in this system. For a society based on the general will to function properly, citizens must develop the ability to think beyond narrow personal interests. They must learn to understand the needs of the community and recognize how cooperation benefits everyone. Education should therefore encourage independence of thought, moral awareness, and a sense of responsibility toward others. Another aspect of this philosophy involves the emotional connection between individuals and their community. A stable society requires more than laws and institutions. It also requires a sense of belonging and shared identity among its citizens. People should feel that they are part of a collective project aimed at improving the lives of everyone within the community. When individuals feel connected to their society, they are more willing to contribute to its success. They respect its laws not simply out of obligation, but because they recognize those laws as expressions of their shared values and goals. This sense of unity strengthens the stability of the political system and reduces conflicts between groups. At the same time, he remained aware of the dangers that political systems face. Governments can drift away from the general will if leaders pursue personal ambition or if citizens become passive. Institutions that once served the public can slowly begin serving the interests of a few. Because of this risk, societies must remain vigilant and willing to reform their systems when necessary. The social contract is therefore not a single event that occurs once in history. It is an ongoing relationship between citizens and their community. Each generation must continue supporting the principles of cooperation, equality, and collective decision-making. When these principles are maintained, the society preserves both order and freedom. Through these ideas, the philosophy offers a powerful vision of political life. Human beings do not have to choose between chaos and oppression. By forming communities based on shared responsibility and the general will, individuals can live together while still preserving the freedom that is essential to human dignity. This vision reshaped discussions about democracy and citizenship. It suggested that political authority should come from the people themselves and that governments exist to serve the common good rather than the interests of a ruling minority. In this way, the idea of the social contract became one of the most influential concepts in the history of political thought. As the philosophy develops further, the focus begins to shift toward the deeper meaning of freedom and how it can exist within a political community. Freedom is often misunderstood as the ability to do whatever one wants without limitation. Yet such unlimited independence cannot exist in a society where many people live together. If every individual acted only according to personal desires without regard for others, conflicts would quickly appear and cooperation would become impossible. For this reason, freedom must be understood in a different way. True freedom does not mean living without rules. Instead, it means living under laws that are created through the collective agreement of the community and that serve the common good. When individuals participate in forming these laws, they are not submitting to an external authority. They are participating in the creation of the rules that guide their shared life. In this sense, a citizen remains free because the authority of the law ultimately comes from the people themselves. The laws are not imposed by a distant ruler or a powerful elite, but arise from the collective will of the community. This idea transforms the relationship between individuals and the state. The state is not meant to dominate society, but to represent the organized expression of the people's shared interests. However, this system can function properly only when citizens are able to distinguish between personal desires and the common good. Every individual naturally has private interests that may conflict with the interests of others. People may desire wealth, recognition, or advantages that benefit themselves more than the community. If political decisions are driven only by these private interests, the idea of the general disappears and the political system becomes unstable. To avoid this problem, citizens must develop the ability to think as members of a community rather than only as individuals pursuing personal benefit. This requires a form of civic awareness in which people understand that their own well-being is connected to the well-being of others. When the community becomes stronger, safer, and more just, the lives of its citizens improve as well. For this reason, civic participation is essential. A healthy political community depends on the active involvement of its citizens. People must discuss public issues, debate ideas, and take part in decisions about laws and policies. Through this participation, the general will gradually emerge as individuals move beyond narrow interests and consider what benefits the entire society. If citizens become passive and withdraw from public life, political systems can easily fall into corruption. Power may concentrate in the hands of a few individuals who pursue their own interests rather than the good of the community. When this happens, the social contract begins to weaken and the sense of collective responsibility disappears. Another important theme in this philosophy is equality. A society that wishes to preserve freedom must prevent extreme inequalities of wealth and power. When a small group becomes extremely wealthy or influential, they gain the ability to shape laws and institutions in ways that protect their own advantages. This can lead to a situation where the majority of people lose meaningful influence over the political system. A balanced society does not require complete equality in every aspect of life. People will always have different talents, abilities, and levels of success. However, the differences should not become so large that they undermine the sense of shared citizenship. When individuals feel that the system works only for the benefit of a few, trust in the political community begins to collapse. He believed that laws should therefore aim to protect a reasonable level of equality among citizens. This does not mean eliminating all differences, but ensuring that no one becomes so powerful that they dominate others. In such a society, individuals can maintain both personal freedom and a sense of fairness within the community. Education also plays a crucial role in supporting this political vision. Citizens must learn not only practical skills, but also the moral and intellectual qualities necessary for responsible participation in public life. Education should cultivate independence of thought, empathy for others, and an understanding of how individual actions affect the larger community. When education encourages these qualities, individuals grow into citizens who value cooperation and justice. They begin to see themselves as participants in a shared project rather than isolated individuals competing for advantage. This sense of shared responsibility strengthens the foundation of the political system. Another element of this philosophy involves the emotional connection people feel toward their community. Laws and institutions alone cannot sustain a society. People must also feel a sense of belonging and loyalty to the community they are part of. This connection encourages them to support the common good and respect the rules that guide collective life. When citizens feel this bond, they become more willing to contribute to the success of the society as a whole. They participate in civic activities, help maintain public institutions, and support decisions that benefit the community even when those decisions require personal sacrifice. This sense of civic commitment helps maintain the balance between freedom and cooperation. Despite this hopeful vision, the philosophy also recognizes the fragility of political systems. Governments can drift away from the principles of the social contract if leaders pursue personal ambition or if citizens lose their sense of responsibility. When corruption spreads or inequality grows too large, the connection between the people and their government weakens. Because of this danger, societies must remain attentive to the health of their institutions. Citizens should question authority when necessary and demand that political systems remain faithful to the common good. Reform and renewal may be required from time to time in order to restore the balance between freedom and order. Through these reflections, a powerful vision of political life emerges. Human beings can live together in organized societies without losing their freedom, but only if the political system truly represents the collective will of the people. Citizens must remain active participants in public life, equality must be protected, and education must cultivate the qualities needed for responsible citizenship. In this way, the social contract becomes more than a political theory. It becomes a guiding principle for building societies where individuals remain free while cooperating for the benefit of the entire community. As the philosophy reaches its final stage, the ideas about freedom, equality, and community come together into a broader vision of human life and society. The central concern remains the same question that appeared from the beginning. How can human beings live together in organized communities without losing the freedom that is essential to their nature? The answer lies in creating a form of social life where individuals do not feel dominated by authority, but instead recognize themselves as participants in the system that governs them. In such a society, the laws are not experienced as chains placed upon individuals by an external power. Instead, they're expressions of the collective will of the people. When citizens understand that the laws reflect their shared interests and their common desire for justice and stability, they obey them not out of fear, but out of recognition that these rules protect everyone. This vision transforms the meaning of political authority. Authority should not come from force, wealth, or inherited power. It should come from the agreement of the people who form the community. When individuals unite through the social contract, they create a political body that represents their collective identity. This body exists to serve the common good rather than the ambitions of a ruling minority. Within this framework, the idea of citizenship becomes extremely important. A citizen is not merely a subject who obeys laws created by others. A citizen is a participant in shaping the direction of the community. Through participation in political life, individuals help determine the rules that guide society. This participation strengthens the connection between personal freedom and collective responsibility. At the same time, the philosophy recognizes that maintaining such a system requires constant effort. A community based on the general will depend on the active involvement of its members. If citizens lose interest in public life or allow powerful individuals to dominate political institutions, the system gradually begins to change. Authority may shift away from the people and toward groups that pursue their own interests. Because of this risk, the health of a political community depends on the character of its citizens. People must develop the ability to think beyond immediate personal advantage and consider the well-being of the entire society. This sense of civic responsibility allows individuals to recognize that their own freedom is closely connected to the freedom of others. Another important element of this philosophy is the idea that societies must remain relatively balanced in terms of power and wealth. Extreme inequality can weaken the social contract because it allows some individuals to gain influence that others cannot match. When a small group controls too many resources or too much authority, they may begin shaping laws to protect their own interests rather than the interests of the entire community. For this reason, a healthy society must protect a degree of equality among its members. This does not require eliminating every difference between individuals, since people naturally possess different talents and abilities. However, the differences should never become so large that they undermine the sense of shared citizenship and cooperation. The philosophy also emphasizes the importance of maintaining a connection between individuals and the community they belong to. People should feel that they are part of a larger whole rather than isolated individuals competing against one another. This sense of belonging encourages cooperation, strengthens trust, and helps citizens recognize the value of contributing to the common good. Education plays a crucial role in cultivating these qualities. Citizens must learn not only practical knowledge, but also the moral understanding needed to participate responsibly in public life. Education should encourage independence of thought while also fostering empathy and awareness of the needs of others. When individuals develop these qualities, they become better prepared to support a political system based on freedom and cooperation. Another important aspect of this philosophy involves the preservation of authenticity in human life. As societies grow more complex, individuals can easily become trapped in patterns of comparison and competition. People may begin measuring their worth by how they appear to others rather than by their own inner sense of purpose. This tendency can lead to anxiety, dissatisfaction, and the loss of genuine individuality. A healthy society should therefore allow individuals to maintain a connection with their natural sense of self. Citizens should be free to develop their abilities, express their thoughts, and live meaningful lives without constant pressure to conform to artificial standards of status or success. When individuals feel secure in their own identity, they are more capable of contributing positively to the community around them. In the end, the philosophy presents a powerful vision of how human societies can balance freedom with cooperation. Human beings do not have to live either in isolation or under oppressive authority. Through the social contract, they can create communities where individuals remain free while working together to build stable and just institutions. The key lies in recognizing that freedom is not the absence of all rules, but the presence of laws that individuals accept as members of a shared community. When citizens participate in shaping these laws, and when those laws serve the common good, freedom and order can exist together. This vision had a profound influence on the development of modern political thought. It inspired discussions about democracy, equality, and the rights of citizens in many parts of the world. By emphasizing the idea that legitimate authority comes from the people themselves, the philosophy helped reshape how societies think about government and political power. At its core, the message remains simple yet powerful. Human beings are capable of living together in freedom if they build communities based on cooperation, equality, and shared responsibility. When individuals recognize their connection to one another and work toward the common good, society becomes not a force that corrupts human nature, but a structure that allows it to flourish.